We have had a heck of a week. We just lost our dog Fiddy unexpectedly this past week. Finn is a dog that we've shown his whole life online, and that is just a sidebar, but actually this video I was going to share our story and experience with our first IVF pregnancy and loss. I realized that I hadn't made an updated video yet, and I meant to do this months ago and I just never got around to it. You know, the last video I shared with you guys was our IVF transfer that was successful. Here's Hallie. This is our other Great Dane. Okay, lay down. So our first IVF transfer was successful, and that was the last video I shared with you guys. And I basically just want to share what happened with everything. We did end up losing that baby. There was a lot that happened. I share daily content on both Instagram and TikTok, so there's a lot more content over there, but I do try to share like the big updates on YouTube because I know some people are only on YouTube as well. I do like making YouTube videos, but it is a lot of content to like try to do all of them. But I would love to fill you guys in on the story. First, I'm going to share a little video of just kind of like our whole experience start to finish with IVF. It was from May 2025. We started stims and everything, did the egg retrieval, and then transfer was in September, and then we ended up miscarrying in December of 2025. So I'll share that video now. Okay, so that video is kind of everything that we went through. You can kind of just see like the gist of what happened, but I'm gonna try not to make this too long of a video because it's just heavy. Everything is heavy right now, and this week we just unexpectedly lost our dog, so my heart is feeling heavy. I'm about to share about our second transfer that we just had as well, so there's just a lot happening in our life, and so I just wanted to get this update out there before I totally forgot to do it. But essentially everything went really well for us. Like, we had the egg retrieval, we did all the stems and everything, and we got amazing results. We've never shared the number of how many embryos we got because honestly we share our story so publicly. I felt like I wanted something to be private, and I don't necessarily want numbers out there. I don't want people assuming how many children we're gonna have, or I don't know, I just want some element of surprise also for like our family. Like, just also, there's a lot of reasons, but depending on how many embryos you have, that doesn't mean that's how many children you're gonna have. And I think a lot of people have that misconception about IVF, and that's where a lot of people disagree with it morally, which I totally understand. And like, I initially didn't think I wanted to do IVF because I didn't agree with it morally, but anyway, it's up to each person and their morals and the way you do it. But also, a lot of people should know that most people don't end up with extra embryos at the end. There's failed transfers, there's miscarriages. Some people only get one embryo per cycle. Like, you just don't know what's gonna happen. And I think a lot of people think you're gonna get a million embryos and they're all gonna stick, and you're just gonna have like hundreds of babies left over that you throw away. And while that maybe is some people's situation, that's also not our situation so far. We feel very comfortable with the number we've gotten. But I know a lot of people who also haven't gotten a lot of embryos. But again, that is each people's personal journey. I just think it's a misconception, a huge misconception for people that are not part of IVF. They don't understand that. But another reason I wanted to keep our numbers private is I just don't want people making assumptions about our family and how many kids we're gonna have and how the process is gonna go. So we're just like keeping all of that private. So our IVF cycle in 2025, basically from May to December, the whole process was we got a good amount of embryos. We felt very thankful and good with the number that we got. We really prayed about it and just prayed that God would give us the number we needed for however many children we were supposed to have. And it's our plan and our intention to use every single embryo and give them all a chance. So that is what we are going to be doing. So we basically got all of our embryos. We decided to do PGT testing, which tests for the correct amount of chromosomes. Not everybody does that. It's obviously an added cost and everything adds up very expensively. So not everyone does that. You can definitely choose to transfer whatever embryo you wanted. The reason we did it was because we had already had a previous miscarriage and trouble conceiving for 4.5 years prior. I felt like if we're already going this far, we might as well see if it has the correct number of chromosomes. You are less likely to have a miscarriage, ironically, in our situation, if you do a PGT tested euploid embryo. Normal is what they call it. We transferred a euploid embryo. We decided to transfer one that we were like, okay, it has a good grade. Grades don't necessarily matter as much if it's euploid because it has the correct number of chromosomes. So like, it's a healthy embryo. It should technically stick if everything else looks good. If your progesterone, your lining looks good, all of your hormones and everything look good, theoretically it should stick. So I did a hysteroscopy before our transfer, which not everyone does that. Our doctor did do it just to check that everything was clear inside. So this was in like August, maybe, I can't quite remember, maybe end of July or August. And so by the time you get the testing results back, it's already a month later after egg retrieval, you're healing. We did a hysteroscopy, and then hysteroscopy also puts you back a month or two because your body has to heal after that. Because if they find any polyps or anything else in there that they have to scrape out, then your body now needs time to heal. Your uterus needs time to heal before you put an embryo in there. So we did my hysteroscopy, and I wake up from the surgery and they told me that I have 2 fibroids and they are not able to remove them. I was going to be sent to an OR at a hospital with a different doctor to have them removed. So it's a pretty simple procedure. It's very similar to a hysteroscopy, but I had to actually go to a hospital and get on their schedule. That was a whole other thing because that put us back like some time. We were going to be pushed back like 3 months to even have that surgery done, but we ended up getting in maybe a month and a half, 2 months later because our doctor worked a favor because it was the doctor he works with all the time. Got us in at the beginning of September. I was originally told we would have to wait a few months to heal before we could transfer the embryo. That was always our expectation, kind of depending on how my body was healing. So we had the surgery beginning of September. After the surgery, all the images and everything gets sent to my IVF doctor. But this is the part that I don't understand, and I still don't even really understand what happened. But for some reason, instead of waiting a few months, our doctor said everything looked clear and we were good to go and we were good to transfer. So we are not IVF doctors, we are not doctors in general, so we don't know anything. I thought it was kind of surprising because initially we were told we would have to wait a few months, but he said everything looks really good, you're good to transfer. So we were like, oh, okay, like obviously we trust our doctor. So we transferred an embryo 3 weeks after my surgery. That embryo stuck. It was a baby boy. And from the beginning, there was complications, tons of complications. It was actually a pretty miserable pregnancy, which is really hard because obviously I was so thankful. Like our first transfer stuck, which is like a miracle in general. Obviously pregnancy is a miracle in general anyway, and you know that very well when you go through infertility. I had subchorionic hematomas right off the bat, so I was spotting right at 5 weeks. And then my bleeding was pretty bad. My cramping was pretty bad. I was up in the middle of the night, like crying in tears, rolling around in pain, like so painful. I eventually was put on bed rest, like strict bed rest for like a month to a month and a half, I think, because they wanted the subchorionic hematomas to like shrink up. Basically, it's like pockets of blood in the uterus, and they can happen in any pregnancy, but they're more likely to happen in IVF pregnancies, I think, just because of the surge of hormones and everything. So that really sucked, and they told me I couldn't like work out or do anything, like literally couldn't walk, anything. So my mental health was plummeting. It was awful. No one else had known that we were doing IVF because we were trying to like surprise everybody. So literally it's just me and my husband. None of my friends know, none of my family knows, so I'm canceling plans. I'm feeling depressed because I haven't had any social interaction in weeks. They don't know why I'm not coming to anything. My mental health was just crap. I was obviously worried about the baby. Another thing was the growth was behind every single week. So like initially we had the yolk sac and fetal pull and all that was great. Then we had a great heartbeat, great. So everything was looking good and I'm like, okay, trusting God, everything's gonna be okay. And then every single week we were like a few days behind, and then we were like 4 days behind, and then we were like 5 days behind. So the baby was growing, but just not at the right pace. And so they definitely had some red flags up about that, and so we were just paying attention to that. Basically, there's a lot that was going on, but this is just like the overall picture. So we graduate the IVF clinic and our ultrasound looked interesting. We would see the baby wiggle, we would see the heartbeat was strong, we had like 180 beats per minute heartbeat, 160 to 180 depending on the week. Baby looked really good. Baby was moving, baby was active. We graduated the IVF clinic at 9 weeks, I think, or 9.5, 10 weeks, I don't know. And then they sent us to an MFM, which is, I don't know why I'm forgetting what that stands for right now, but it's for like high risk pregnancies. So they sent us there literally the next day just to see what was going on with the baby and why the baby was not growing at the correct pace. So we go in that next day. We had just graduated the IVF clinic, which gave us a sort of confidence, like obviously being like, okay, we graduated the clinic, like things are gonna move forward. We're gonna do this high risk doctor thing for the rest of the time, but it's gonna be okay. Next day, we go in and have an ultrasound before talking to that other doctor, and baby was wiggling, baby's heartbeat was good, but again, just some things looked off. And again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not an ultrasound tech, but just from pictures I've seen of like my friends and sisters' pregnancies, I'm like, I don't know, something just looked different. We felt good. We left that ultrasound, we had to wait an hour to see the doctor. So then we go into the doctor's office, his leg is shaking, he's sweating, he's looking nervous. And we're like, okay, well obviously something's wrong. So he basically tells us, he sits us down and just says like, you guys are gonna lose this baby, basically. So it was just very blindsiding and just very shocking, and I felt like out of body experience. Like literally I felt like my body was like and we were just like fighting for good news every single week. I had finally told my family and friends because I needed some like social interaction, I needed some support, and I needed prayers. So like they knew for a couple weeks, and we're just like praying for a miracle, praying everything's okay, praying for growth, praying for a good heartbeat. And every week we got a little bit of growth and heartbeat. We just were like, okay, it's gonna work out, like God's answering our prayers. And then literally in one day everything just like totally turns around, and basically we were told we were gonna lose the baby. I haven't necessarily shared the diagnoses that we got, but like the baby had some major growth restrictions that literally ended up naturally taking the life of the baby at 11 weeks. The heartbeat ended up stopping, and so we found out because we went to an OB, my OB, just for like the first appointment with the OB, and the baby's heart had stopped at 11 weeks. But there was some major growth restrictions that were very unfortunately probably caused by the length of time in between my surgery and my transfer. So we can't prove that, obviously, but the thing that's interesting is that both my OB and the MFM doctor didn't speak to each other, both separately told us, why did you guys transfer so soon? And we were like, I don't know, our doctor told us to. And they both told us that normally you wait 2 to 3 months after a myomectomy, which is a fibroid removal surgery, to transfer so that your body can heal. So again, you can't like 100% prove that's what happened, but it's just interesting because they both said the same thing to us. They said, I feel like what happened was a cause of the lack of time in between for your body to heal. So there was likely maybe some scar tissue or maybe a little bit of tissue left over from the surgery that essentially kind of, it's really morbid and very sad, but like pulled our baby apart and like literally killed him. So yeah, very heartbreaking, and was a really hard pill to swallow because he was otherwise healthy and growing, but it was potentially just a lack of healing time for my body that took his life. And that was really hard to know that he probably could still be alive and we would be having him in June of this year. So that was really hard. That's basically the story of what happened with our last pregnancy. So then my body had to heal. I ended up starting to naturally miscarry, which was awful. And then I ended up having to have a D&C anyway. So I miscarried naturally. I don't know why I'm doing this. It just was like taking forever for like 5 days of excruciating pain. My first miscarriage, I had to actually take misoprostol, or if that's how you say it, the medicine that makes you miscarry. This time my body started naturally, which I was really proud of my body for, because I'm like, okay, well, it's like registering that the baby's gone, and so my body started miscarrying. But then I think after like 5 days, it was, my body just like tapped out and was done, and I was hoping everything was over. Went into the OB and there was still more in there. My body just kind of like gave up, I think, because it couldn't get everything out. So then I had to go do the D&C anyway. All very just traumatizing. I got my second tattoo, so his birth month would have been June, and that's a rose. The first baby is a daffodil because the baby would have been due in March. So I have both the babies here on my arms now forever. And then we basically healed. That was in December of 2025, and then geared up for the next transfer. So we just had that other transfer, and I'm going to be sharing that result and experience next. But yeah, I just wanted to get the story out there and also have it online so that I could remember it. And yeah, that's what happened. I'm smiling from trauma, not smiling from happiness, but yeah, I don't even really know how to end this video, but thank you for watching. If you want to continue to watch our journey to parenthood and starting our family, then subscribe. Or you can go follow me on Instagram or TikTok. I share literally every day over there. I also share other parts of my life. So Instagram is Tay Terrell, TikTok is Tay Terrell_. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.